Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm Vidhi Thakrar.
I'm Soumya Vishwanathan.
Yeah, so welcome to the session of Transition to Modular Architecture, where we are going to share our journey from monolith to modular architecture. So let's see what we are going to cover as a part of this talk. So we'll start with understanding the pain points of monolith architecture, which we have faced. Then we'll also talk about the objective which we have set for ourselves while modularizing the whole application. After that, once we understand the importance of the modular architecture, then we'll talk about that how actually we have broken down the whole application into multiple modules. Okay, and we'll talk about three layer of the modularized architecture. And then we will also cover a very important aspect of the modularization, which is that at the end, it is still a single application, then how different features can interact with each other. And after that, we'll talk about how did we approach this architecture evolution in parallel to the new feature development, because like for us, it was a big team, and then parallel new feature development was going on. Then how can we approach this particular architecture evolution? And after that, we'll talk about how modular architecture has impacted our project as well as our team. So let's begin. So before actually talking about the pain points of the monolith architecture, let me share our story. So there was one of our clients who came to us and then asked us to build new features on their existing mobile application. So like it was quite promising. We started a small team of 6 to 8 developers who were working on that mobile application, and we started building the new features on top of that. And then like everything was quite smooth. It was a small application, and then we were able to deliver features as well on time. But then over the period of time, as the feature grows on that application, and our teams also like scaled up to like somewhere around, I think 25 to 30 people in a team working on the same code base. That's where actually we started seeing some of the challenges of the monolith architecture. So the challenges which we have faced in the monolith architecture was like lack of separation of concern, because everything was in a single module. There was no clear cut feature boundaries. Just for the minimal reusability, we used to add dependencies between features. So because of that, we faced a lot of problem that whenever you are changing something in one feature, you don't know where it is going to break in other features. So that was like very challenging for us. Second was the longer feedback cycle, because as the feature as the number of features we started adding too many number of features in the same application code base. Whenever we are changing like a small thing, it used to run the whole unit test, integration test, and functional test as a part of CI pipeline, and it used to take time because of the large code base. Also for the local development, we have seen that even if developer is making like a small change, developers is anyways like used to run the unit test on the local machine, and it used to take so much time to just give the feedback whether you have broken something or everything is like smooth. Also because of all these things, we were not able to deliver the features on time. So it was like a slow time to market. And then from the developers perspective, we were not very confident of making changes to the existing features, because we do not know where it is going to break in the other features. So it was like from the developer side, we have seen that the confidence was quite low. And due to all these concerns, we were not able to actually scale up the team after a certain point in time. So though there were asks from the client to develop so many features in parallel, and features were like comparatively a bit independent as well, but because our code base was not that independent, like we were facing a lot of challenge of scaling up the team and do the parallel feature development. So these were the pain points which we have seen due to the monolith architecture. So this is the objective which we had set for ourselves when we decided, okay, that this is not scaling up, and we would really like to break the application into multiple modules. This is the objective which we had set, that we want to develop features rapidly, reliably, and repeatedly. So if we have to say the same thing into more concrete terms, then what actually we are saying? So we are saying that we want to do the faster development of the new features Also, whenever we are making any changes to the existing features, it should be in a simplified manner. We want to do like refactoring easily. We also want to have like a simplified test strategy of the modules. We want isolated and faster feedback of independent modules. We definitely want to speed up the build time, and we want to scale up our team. So this was the objective which we have set for ourselves. Now let's talk about modularized architecture. So now as we have seen the challenges and we have decided that, okay, now we want to break the whole application into multiple modules, but how like, are we going to break the whole application, whether it should be like a horizontally breakdown or whether it should be like a vertical breakdown, how are we going to do it? So as we have seen that for us, the main challenge was like parallel feature development, where the features were quite independent. We wanted to scale up our team. So we decided to go ahead with the vertical breaking of the application. So what does that mean is that this was the architecture which we had come up with, where you can see that at the bottom layer, there are like library modules. On top of that, we had like a independent feature modules, okay? And then on top, we have the app module, okay? So here you can see that as we were saying that, okay, our main aim was to scale the team and like, do the parallel feature development. Here you can see that the features are like, completely independent of each other. And we can create like a sub teams which can own up that feature and can parallelly work and can parallelly develop the features. So that was the main idea of coming up with this modularized architecture. In terms of dependencies, if you see from in the diagram, it's like that, okay, app has a dependency on the feature modules. App can also have a dependencies on the library modules. Feature modules have a dependencies on the library modules, but if you see that the features do not have dependency on each other, so they are completely independent. Let's just take a look at the definition of all these three kind of modules. So first one is the library. So what is the library module, right? So library module provides common capabilities needed by multiple features which are not coupled to a particular business functionality. So it is like completely agnostic of the business functionality, and it is just covering the cross-cutting aspect. So if I have to give you an example of the library module, let's say that you are building an application where you are coming up with your own UI components, and those components are something which is shared across multiple features, okay? So then you can create UI kit as a library module. Also, the another example could be like if you are having your own abstractions on top of your network library, then that is also something which you can create it out as a library module, which is nothing but you can say it as a network module, which is not actually depending on a particular functionality, but just like providing some of the common abstractions which are needed across multiple features. Second is the feature module. So feature module provides cohesive, loosely coupled, domain-aware business functionality, which should be independently testable as a single unit. So here, if I have to give an example, it's like just take an example of like flight ticket booking application, okay? So in that particular case, what kind of feature modules we would create, right? So if you just take an example of like, for example, Make My Trip, right? So where you can see that, in that particular application, My Trips could be like a one feature module, which just tells you what are the flights you have already booked, and then you can manage your trips. Second is like definitely like booking of the flight, or I would say maybe the shopping of the flight. So shopping, booking, My Trips, all of those are like independent features which can be like a feature modules in the flight ticket booking application. The third one is the container. So container contains all the library and feature modules, as you can see in the diagram. And it serves as an entry point of the application and also acts as an orchestrator to orchestrate feature module interaction. So the orchestrator part, that is something which we will go much deeper into it into the coming slides. But if I have to give an example of the container, then definitely like in the Android application, our app module is entry point of the application, and app module contains like all the features as well as the library modules. Okay, so now we have seen that, okay, the importance of the modularization, three-layer architecture of the modularization. Now let's just see that, okay, at the end it is still a single application, and then we need to solve the important aspect that, how multiple features can interact with each other. So to understand that, how features can interact with each other, let's just take a small example to see, like in general, in the mobile application, what kind of feature interactions would generally require. Okay, so what we have done here is we have created like a small application. Okay, this is nothing but a shopping app application where you open the application, like you will see the categories of the products. So here you can see like a grocery, books, electronics, and furniture. When you go into a particular category, you can see like a list of products. Here you can see that, okay, there are 2 products in this particular category. If you go inside that particular list item, you can see that, okay, there are some more details about that product. Okay, and here the another thing which you can see inside the detail is that you can see 2 buttons. One is that buy now, and second is add to cart. When you click on the buy now, it takes you to the purchase screen, and like, you can fill in the information and you can buy that product. And if you just click on add to cart, in that particular case, your your product is going to get added to the cart. Now here you can see a cart button as well. If you press on that cart button, here you can see whatever items you have added to the cart. And from here also you can go and purchase the products which are there in the cart. So this is like a very small shopping application, right? So here now, if we have to break down this application into multiple modules, then what kind of modules we can come up with? So definitely, I think one module which we can think of is the product module, right? Where it will contain the product list and product detail and the product domain model, right? So that is definitely one module. What other feature modules which you can think of? Like we can maybe create a cart as a different module where it can show us the cart screen, and it can manage the the cart, like adding of the product, removing of the products, and other things. And the third one could be like a purchase module where like you can buy the actual product. You can fill in the information and then you can buy the product, either which are there in the cart, or maybe you can just directly buy the product from the product detail page. So at the high level, these are the feature modules which we can think of. Now, if we have to think about the inter-feature interaction, right? So if you see from the product list, there are no interaction where we are not going to any different kind of a feature. When you click on the product list item, we are going to the product detail itself, and we are saying that inside the product module, we can have a product detail, we can have a product detail, right? So which means this interaction is still inside the product itself. But then on the product detail, you can see that there are 2 buttons, which is buy now and add to cart. Buy now is something which we are saying is it is taking us to the purchase screen. So here from the product, we are going to the purchase module. Okay, and we are actually starting a new flow of the purchase here, right? As you can see here, that okay, we are going from product module to purchase module, and we are just now starting the different purchase flow altogether. But then there is another option as well, which is add to cart, where product module has to interact with the cart module. But here, if you see, right, we are not actually navigating to a different screen. We are just adding the items to the cart, but we are still here on the product detail screen itself. So these are like this 2 different kind of interaction which we can see from the product. Let's just see what is there in the cart. So in the cart, from the cart, you can also start the purchase flow. So now when you start the purchase flow, here also actually we are going to a purchase module, and we are just starting the whole purchase flow. So this is again like a similar kind of an interaction that we just want to navigate to a different kind of a feature. And then apart from that, there are no more interactions here. So I think mainly now if I come back to our presentation, there are mainly 2 kind of interactions which we can see in like any application. One is where we want to navigate to another feature, which means we are starting the flow of another feature. Here as an example from the product detail, we are starting the flow of the purchase. And the second one is where we want to perform an operation onto another feature, where actually we are not navigating to another feature, but we are just asking another feature to perform some kind of an action. In our example, it is like from the product, we are saying that, okay, add this product to the cart, but do not start like a, different navigation flow. So these are the two main, interactions which we see in any kind of an application, right? So now, what we will do is like we will just go through like different approaches to solve this problem, this two kind of a feature interaction, and we will also compare them. Also, one more thing to note here is that in terms of navigation, yes, we are right that we are just starting a different navigation to another feature and we are performing an operation. But the important point here is that we also want like a product information to be passed along with different feature when we are either start navigating to another feature or we are performing an operation on another feature. So the data is also like a very important problem to solve, that how are we going to share data between multiple features. So let's just see different approaches to solve these two particular interactions. Okay. So first we'll talk about navigate to another feature, and this is the example which we have seen when you click on the buy now and we are starting the purchase flow. Okay, so now the first approach is like, when we start thinking about this as a problem, definitely one approach which come to our mind is that, okay, like, Android does provide like an implicit intent through which like we do not have to put any direct dependency on the feature where we want to navigate to. But then we can just directly like, use an action, right? And then we can just put that as a string. And then also like if you want to pass some data, then we can pass that data into the intent, and intent is nothing but a generic structure. So that is something like, which is already available in Android, and then we can leverage that. So let's see if we want to leverage that particular approach, then how would it look like? So from the product perspective, from the start the purchase flow, right? So inside the product detail activity, in the function buy now, what we can write is we can say, okay, just create a new intent. So we are just creating a new intent. The whole example snippet which we have here is in Kotlin. So here you can see that, okay, we are just, creating an intent by just using that particular action. And then we are just putting, two information. One is the product name and the second is the product price. Because in the purchase, we are not displaying the whole, product information. It just requires two information. One is product name and second is product price. So let's just put it inside the intent and then we will just say the start activity, right? So this is how it will look like from the product perspective. Let's see what purchase needs to do, right? So inside the purchase activity, what we need to do is from the on create, we will just take this information from the intent and then we will just display it on the screen. So we are just taking it from the intent and then we are just, displaying it on the screen, right? So this is how it is going to look like from the purchase. Let's see now pros and cons of this particular approach. So here the advantage of this approach is that, okay, we are just using like an Android's built-in abstractions. We do not have to come up with our own abstraction. We can just leverage what Android is providing and we are good to go, right? On the flip side, the disadvantages are like, it does not give you any compile time safety, right? So intent is nothing, but it is like a generic structure. So here, for example, in the intent, you are putting it as a string, but while reading it from the purchase activity, maybe you read it as an integer and you will not get to know, any problems while building the application. You will only get to know that, okay, there is a problem when you actually run the application and when you actually go to the purchase flow. Then only you will realize that, oh, now actually I'm getting like a product name as an integer where actually it is supposed to be a string. So there you will see this kind of a problem. So any compile time safety. The another problem with this approach is that, see, right, though the features are not dependent on each other directly in terms of code, but there are still like an indirect feature dependencies. How there are indirect feature dependencies is like, if you see here, like this action, right, whatever we are writing inside the intent, the same action should be configured in the purchase activity. Okay, if the same action is not configured over there, then again, like you will face a problem while running the app. The second thing is like whenever you are putting in extras, The name, like because the intent is a generic structure, it's just a key value pair. So in the key name should be same, when you are setting it from the product detail activity, at the same time when you are reading it from the intent in the purchase activity, right? So this is like still actually we are having like an indirect dependencies between these two features, right? So that is again like a flip side. Whenever you are changing, like for example, if you want to change this, from the purchase activity, if you just want to change the key name, you have to make sure that you are changing it in the product detail activity as well. Otherwise, it will give you a problem at the runtime. So now we'll talk about another approach. Okay, and I'll ask Soumya to talk about another approach.
Sure. Thank you, Vidhi. Yeah. So in the first approach, we saw a very generic solution, right? So here, let us try to solve one of the problems that we faced in approach one, that is ensuring compile time safety. So in our application, if we see when you want to move from product page to the purchase page, as well as from the cart to the purchase screen, the thing that we needed was product as an object, right? So if we go back to our architecture diagram, so we know that there were three layers present. So there was library, there was app, and then there were the feature modules. We know the library is something that is shared across all the features. So what we can do is we can have all our domain objects to be shared throughout the application. That is, all the feature models can access all the domain models. So in case of our application, what would happen is the product as a domain model would be shared for all the features. It would be present in the library module. Now, next, what we need is a contract to set in place for these navigations. So if any feature wants to start the purchase screen, all they need is a contract saying start purchase, and it takes a product with it. So here, right, we have a contract defined like a feature navigator, which is again going to be very generic, not tied to a specific feature. And it will be again there in the library module, so that all the features can access it, and it just takes the product object. And similarly, right, in the product detail activity, when we want to start the purchase screen, all we have to do is inject the feature navigator. We'll come to the injection part in a bit, like we have used Dagger Android. We look into it when we see the demo. But using this injection, what feature navigator can do is it can just start the purchase and take the product model. But now, right, this is just the contract part of it. Someone needs to implement how the navigation takes place. That is, when any feature says start purchase, it should actually create an intent to start the purchase activity. So in our architecture diagram, we know that the app is the entry point for our application. So app can act as an orchestrator, for all the navigations. So what we actually do is in the app module, we have the implementation for our feature navigator, which says, okay, start purchase, it takes in a product, then it creates the intent. And again, app can access purchase activity directly. So we don't need to specify any key value pair to start an intent or create an intent. And we just put the whole product object, which is parcelable, into the intent, and we start the purchase screen, right? So now that we have seen this approach, let us quickly look at how it has its own advantages and disadvantages. So here, right, if we look at the advantages point of view, we have generic abstraction for feature navigation. So I need not, define multiple contracts for starting the purchase screen. All these screens can use the start purchase that is defined in the feature navigator to start the purchase screen. And again, right, we don't have to worry about the compile time safety since we are using the domain object as such. So need not worry about, string any runtime errors, any surprising runtime errors that can occur. But again, right, it has its own cons attached to it, or on drawbacks that are there. One is the library module, being a shared module, now knows about all the feature navigations, be it the product screen or the purchase screen or the cart. It now holds the additional responsibility of knowing the feature navigations. And in addition to knowing the feature navigation, it also knows about the domain models that are present throughout the app. So what will happen when it knows about the domain models, right? So this kind of is a problem when we think about the encapsulation part of it. So today, right, the product as a model holds only product related details that is needed. So tomorrow, right, when we have to start purchase from the cart screen, and cart as a feature decides, okay, I need one more attribute that I need to send to the purchase screen. Maybe, you know, my extra quantity or some offer that I have applied. So the teams, like, you know, they can tend to pollute the product as a domain module. So there are chances that more than what is needed for the product module are defined into the object. So that is a flip side when we think about the encapsulation and the responsibilities for the domain models. So based on this approach one and approach two, there is another approach that we thought of when we thought of this whole modularization. And maybe Vidhi, can you talk through that?
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. So the next approach is the contextual abstraction. Okay. So now if we just see that, okay, what actually we want to do, right? So we have these two modules, two feature modules, product and the purchase. Okay. So what is this product module? So if you see, the product module is something which is nothing but a requester, which is requesting that, okay, I want to start the purchase flow. Okay. And then the purchase module can be like a, helpful person here, and then can say that, okay, I am the purchase module, and I can also provide you a service where you can use that service and you can start my flow. Okay. So we have a product which is nothing but a requester. We have a purchase which is nothing but a provider. But we need someone who can actually act as a bridge between them, right? So that's what we want. So now in this particular case, as we have seen earlier, that our app module is like, a container which contains all the features, all the library, and can also act here as a bridge, or I would say also as an orchestrator, which can make sure that, okay, whenever product is requesting for, starting the purchase flow, I know that, okay, purchase is module which can provide, which has provided me this service, okay, which I can use to fulfill the request come from product module. So that's how, like, the app can act as an orchestrator here. Let's see in the code that how it is going to look like. Okay. Now, before going further into the code, the another thing which we need to make sure is like how the data is something which we are going to pass, because in the second approach, as we have seen, right, that we need to pass some kind of a data because purchase requires a product, right? So how are we going to pass it? Though we have solved the problem of the navigation, but how are we going to pass the data? So here, if we see, right, the purchase is something which actually does not require the whole product module, whole product model. It just requires two of the information, right? One is the product name and the second is the product price. So what we can say, say here is that, okay, maybe the purchase module itself can have its own projection of the product, okay, and does not need to have the whole product domain model. So what does that mean is, product domain model is still with the product, okay, which has the like all the information which is required around the product domain model. Purchase is something which will have the projection of the product domain model. Now we will see this into the into the example here and into the code snippet, that how it is going to look like. So let's just check that. So from the product module perspective, as the product is requester, what we are saying is that product will just expose one interface, which is nothing but product outward navigator. Okay. And it will have one particular contract here, which is saying that start purchase, that, okay, I want to start the purchase flow. And what are the information which I can pass from the product is, okay, I can give you the context. Along with that, I can give the whole product information. Okay. So this is the interface which is going to be exposed by the product module. Okay. From the product detail, you can see that we can inject this product outward navigator. We will come to that part, that how it is going to get injected, but that is something which can be injected to the product detail activity. Okay. And then in the on create, what we can do here is, whenever somebody is clicking on the buy now button, we can say, okay, product outward navigator dot start purchase. Okay, we are just passing the context and we are passing the product which is being used while displaying this product detail activity, right? So this is how it can look like from the product perspective. Let's see how it is going to look like from the purchase module perspective. So inside the purchase, we will have one service, okay, which is purchase inward navigator. So this is the abstraction which is going to be exposed by the purchase module, which is saying that the purchase inward navigator. And here it will have the one particular, contract, which is nothing but a start purchase. And inside that, we can see that it is taking context. And here you can see, instead of like, taking or accepting the product domain model, I will say that, okay, I am accepting the purchase product domain model. Now, what is this purchase product? You can see it here. Inside this purchase product, I have a name and I have a price. I do not have the full-fledged product. I do not know about the product, but I know that, okay, I can provide you a service, okay, but you need to give me purchase product, and inside purchase product, I will need two information. One is name and one is price, okay? And then here internally inside this start purchase, we are just starting an intent, because now actually we are inside the purchase, right? So purchase module knows how to start the purchase activity. So we are just saying that, okay, now create an intent for the purchase activity, then just put this extra purchase product inside it, and then just start that particular activity, right? So this is how it is going to look like from the purchase module. Now let's see that how app is going to act as an orchestrator between these two feature modules, right? So here inside the app, what we will do is we will implement the product, we will implement the purchase, we will implement the product outward navigator, okay? Because that is something which is an interface which is provided by the product module. So app is going to implement it. And app is inside the product outward router, which is nothing but the implementation of product outward navigator. I can also, inject the purchase inward navigator, which is nothing but the service provided by the purchase module. So this is how it is going to look like in the app. And inside that particular implementation, what we will do is we will we will create a purchase product from the product. So here you can see it that, okay, we are creating a purchase product from the product, and we are just using the purchase inward navigator to start the purchase flow, right? So here how it is going to look like from the app module perspective, right? So now let's just take a look at the pros and cons of this particular approach. So the disadvantages, the advantages of this approach is like, we will have the independent features, because if you see, there are no direct or indirect dependencies between the features, right? So we have the independent features. It also gives us the compile time safety, okay, because we are not using any generic kind of an abstraction. We are using like a concrete abstractions, whereas the inside the interface as well, we are using like a proper domain model. So we are not using generic abstractions anywhere. So it is giving us the compile time safety. And the third one is it is giving us the encapsulation as well. As we have seen in the second approach, that if you are putting like a product domain model inside the common library, then the problem could be like, like the encapsulation is broken, because all the features can use whatever functionality it is being exposed by the product domain model. Here, because we are using the projection inside the purchase module, the whole product domain model is not exposed. Okay, so we are achieving the encapsulation. On the flip side, right now, there is only one feature module, which is nothing but the purchase, which requires the projection. Maybe tomorrow there are other features as well, which also require some little information from the product. Then we have to create projections. Okay, we cannot just directly add the dependencies on the features. We need to keep creating the projections. And the second thing is like app as a single point of failure, because if you see, like app is like playing a very critical role over here, where it is doing the transformation, and also then it is like providing that orchestration to like take the information from product, and then take the service provided by the purchase module, and then fulfill the request. Okay, so which means that it is like having a critical role here. So it has to be like thoroughly tested. So that is something which we just need to make sure if we are going ahead with this approach. So these are the pros and cons of this particular approach. I'll ask Soumya to talk further about this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so before we actually move on to see the other type of navigations, if you were to reflect on these three approach, there isn't actually any correct approach that is there when we have to modularize our Android application here, right? It really depends on the team's need and use case. For example, for a smaller app, if they are fine with having a key value pair for an intent and generic data structures, that would suffice. Or for some applications where we don't have many domain models involved, and one domain model is sufficed among other feature modules, like they use most of the properties for a single domain model, or couple of domain models, approach 2 would be good enough. But for our use case, right, in our project, we went ahead with approach 3 because we had multiple features and we really couldn't use a shared domain model across all the features. We wanted to ensure encapsulation is followed there, and along with the other advantages that the approach 3 gives. So we went ahead with the contextual abstraction approach, where each feature was responsible for its own projection and its own contract to talk to the other features, right? Now, taking this approach 3 of contextual abstraction, if we look at the other type of navigation that is possible in the app, so in our shopping app, that is when I want to add an item to the cart from the product page, but it does not involve any navigation out of the product screen. Let us see how this contextual abstraction applies here. So very similar to feature navigation, what we can do is uh, cart, right? Cart can expose something like a contract called add to cart action, which takes in a product. Maybe it would be the next screen. Yeah. Yeah. So here, right? So the product, right? We have an interface and we have a contract defined saying I'm going to add product to the cart. So I will just give a product to the method add to cart. And on the button click of add to cart, what we have to do is we have to just invoke the function of add to cart. Similarly, what cart has to do in this approach is it has to expose a service so that it can accept product into the cart. Here, right, but cart, right, as a feature module is not aware of the product domain module. It has its own projection of cart product. So it accepts something called as cart product, which just has, name, quantity, and price. Quantity is something that is not present in the product domain model, but it is required for cart product. So it has its own projection. Now, what we will do is we will again leverage the app to provide the implementation during runtime. So we have a cart action executor, which actually provides an implementation for the cart action and takes in the cart service as well. So when the cart service add method is called, the product is converted to cart product and it is sent to the cart feature module. So again, this whole transformation of the object is taken care by the app. So the same approach that we applied for feature navigation from one feature to another screen can be actually extended on the actions that are possible from one feature to another to pass the required data. Now maybe we can quickly look at the code on how the code is structured and how the injection actually happens. So this is how the app will look like. Maybe first we can see the structure, right? So we have app as a feature module. Then we have cart as a feature module, product and purchase. So they are all, app as a module. So it will serve as an entry point. Product, purchase, and cart are the feature modules. So in our product detail activity, where we actually use all the actions and navigations, we see that we have used Dagger Android to inject cart action and product outward navigator. So both of them are pure interfaces. So if we go into one of the classes, so it is just a pure interface which has the contracts defined and it takes in the product. And in case of start cart, it takes the context. And similarly, yeah, yeah. So when we now go to the module, we use Dagger. Since we are using Dagger injection, so the injection is possible using this. So we provide product detail activity and we allow the injections to be taking place there. Now in product detail activity, yeah, on the add to cart button, any of the actions, we will just quickly look on where the method is called. Yeah, we just call the start purchase. Now, if we go to the app module, where we actually provide the implementation for this. Okay, yeah. So we have using Dagger, we see, right. So we provide the implementation during runtime. So we bind the product outward navigator to provide the implementation called product outward router. Similarly, for cart action, it provides cart action executor. Maybe we can look at one of the classes. So yeah, again, we use constructor injection to provide the necessary classes, do the transformation and call the receiving method in case start purchase or start product, start cart. Maybe we can quickly look at cart outward, like the cart action executor to look at the transformation. Yeah, here when we say add to cart, the transformation, etc., is carried out by the app module. Yes. So this is how the app is structured and how we leveraged Dagger to actually take care of all the implementations. Mm. So now, yeah. So this is so till now we saw how we can use various approaches to modularize the application, right? So if we start using these approaches for any fresh app, it is easy to start implementing or do it from day one. But in our case, we already had an existing monolith application which needed to be modularized. So maybe we will not talk about the approach that we took to modularize, one of the feature modules. So before we actually started modularizing feature modules, so we set two criterias for us. One was none of the release cycles should be hampered. The releases should happen as they were planned. And the second was whichever feature we decided to modularize first should not have any active development going on or any major development going on or coming major requirements coming up in the future. And it should be a medium-sized feature where we can quickly try it out, get faster feedback, and then apply it for the other feature modules. So once we identified such a feature, what we had to do is we had to figure out the library and other feature dependencies. Because there are two type of dependencies. Because the library dependencies will be used by all the feature, and then there are feature to feature dependencies. Now we have to start decoupling the code. To decouple the library modules, like for both the decouplings, right, we have to follow bottom-up approach. So first, we need to take out only the abstractions that are needed. Like, when we say library module, there can be bunch of methods or classes present that are used across features, but we should not go, big bang and try to identify the library modules throughout the app. For any feature, let's say the product as a feature, whatever library module is required for the product feature module, we can take it out and start building our library module. Once that is done, next we have to decouple the feature dependencies. Here, right, when we start decoupling the feature dependencies and take, like say, product as a feature module, we need to take the bottom up approach again. That is, first we need to move the models away to the feature module, then the repository classes, then the view model or presenter, depending on the design pattern that we use. And then comes the activities, and then at the end, the UI XML files. So this will actually help us, to do trunk-based development, keep moving on, not break the build, not break the applications, so that even if a release happens in the middle of this whole modularization, none of our BAU would be hampered. So this is how we approach the whole modular architecture. Next, right, after doing this for a couple of features, what we saw was, as Win was, the build time was reduced by 25 to 30%. Now, since we started building the feature modules in the CI, right, we could run the test parallelly. And since the feature to feature dependency was reduced, any change in purchase module need not involve the other modules to be built. So the build time was reduced significantly. And since now the feature teams were independent and did not depend on the other features with all the contracts set in place, the development time also became faster. So we saw the feature development time reduced by 20%, which in turn involved, helped us scaling up the teams, adding more developers to the feature teams, quick ramp ups, context sharing became easier. So the scaling up of the team also, increased by 50%. So this was the journey, our journey of modularizing our monolith application into feature modules. So this is all we had. So the example that we used is present like in the GitHub repo. If we have any questions, we can take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya and Vidhi, for the informative talk. If anybody has questions, please feel free to ask them or put them in the chat box. We also have a feedback link for today's talk, so please do fill it before leaving. And also, we'll be putting the recording for today's session on YouTube. We'll follow up with that on the meetup page.
Team, I think it's a great share. The experience was great. I think just a question on how many features you could spill out in this particular problem
So I
in
think
terms of team.
in
Like
terms
how
of,
many? Am I audible?
yeah, you are audible.
Okay, I was asking, if you can put it in a numbers, how many teams and the features you can come up by following this approach?
Yeah, so I think after applying this modularization, we could see like, 5 to 6 teams working parallelly on different features.
Okay, and comprising maybe 6 to 8 people.
No, so I think in total, I think we were able to add like, somewhere around like a 40 people. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I think there are a couple of questions here. I think maybe we can just go through it. So I think Vijay is there, or he dropped off. I think people dropped off. Maybe. Uh, so I think I don't know, like people are dropped off. So if like the people who are still on the call, if you have any question, then we can go through it.
Okay, I think nobody has
Lilima, I think your voice is breaking. Is it just me or?
I was hearing the robotic
any
voice.
other problems. We can close for me. And thank
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much, people. Thanks Vidhi and Soumya for the interesting talk.
Thank you.
And thanks people for tuning in. We'll be uploading the session on the YouTube as well if you want to refer it in future. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.